Hello, all you film freaks and movie maniacs out there. My name is Nolan Carr, and I'd like to welcome you to the go-to podcast for all things cinema. But before you can ask any questions, just sit back, relax, as I present to you a Strawlane Studio Productions Critiquing with Carr. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another exciting edition of the show here, Critiquing with Carr for Fit Film Friday. As always, if you've enjoyed episodes just as this one, do us a favor by subscribing on YouTube, follow us on the audio platforms, clicking on thumbs up or like buttons so you can tell us you enjoy these episodes, turning on post notifications on this platform so you can stay up to date when episodes release, as well as clicking the share out so you can help continue to grow the podcast with our friends and family. Also, if you want other ways of staying up to date with the show, do us a favor by following us on Instagram at Critiquing with Carr. I say all that because on this week's very milestone edition of the podcast, review number 100, we're talking about the classic 1931 German film M. And with that being said, let's begin. This film was directed and co-written by Fritz Lang. The co-screenwriter for this film was Thea von Harbo, and the film was produced by Seymour Nebenzahl. And the cast for this movie is as follows: Peter Lorre, Otto Wernick, Gustav Gründgens, Ellen Windman, and Inge Lindgut. The cinematographer for this film was Fritz Arno Wagner. The movie was edited by Paul Falkenberg. The production company for this film was Nero Film. The film was distributed by Vernon-Gate Star Film. The movie was released on May 11th of 1931. The runtime was 111 minutes. And although the budget for this film was not known, the box office grand total for this film was $35,274 US. The extremely short list of accolades for this film are as follows. At the National Board of Review Awards, the movie won the National Board of Review Award for Top Foreign Film. Now it comes time for one of my favorite parts, which is when I list off the top 10 highest-grossing films throughout years release, being 1931's M. Coming in 10th place at 10th was A Connecticut Yankee. It was distributed by Fox Film Corporation. Its total gross was $1.2 million US, and it stars Will Rogers, William Farnham, and Maureen O'Sullivan. Coming in 9th place on this list was Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It was distributed by Paramount Pictures. Its total gross was $1.25 million US. This was Friedrich March, Miriam Hopkins, and Rose Hobart. Coming in 8th place on this list was Aerosmith. It was distributed by United Artists. Its total gross was $1.25 million US also. And it stars Ronald Colman, Helen Hayes, and Richard Bennett. Coming in 7th place on this list was Merrily Mary Ann. It was distributed by Fox Film Corporation as well. Its total gross was $1.3 million US. It stars Janet Gaynor, Charles Farrell, and Beryl Mercer. Coming in 6th place on this list was Cimarron. It was distributed by RKO Radio Pictures. Its total gross was $1.38 million US. It stars Richard Dix and Irene Dunne. Coming in 5th place at the halfway mark was The Man Who Came Back. It was distributed by Fox Film Corporation as well. Its total gross was $1.4 million US. And it stars Janet Gaynor and Charles Farrell. Coming in 4th place on this list was Possessed. It was distributed by Metro Goldwyn Mayer. Its total gross was $1.52 million US. It stars Joan Crawford, Clark Gable, and Wallace Ford. Coming in 3rd place with the bronze medal was Palmy Days. It was distributed by United Artists. Its total gross was $1.6 million US. And stars Eddie Cantor, Charlotte Greenwood, and George Raft. Coming in 2nd place on this list with the silver medal was Trader Horn. It was distributed by Metro Goldwyn Mayer as well. Its total gross was $4.2 million US. And so Harry Carey, Edwina Booth, and Duncan Ronaldo. And finally, coming in at number 1 with the gold medals, the highest-grossing film for 1931 was City Lights. It was distributed by United Artists. Its total gross was $4.25 million US. It stars Charlie Chaplin, Virginia Sherrill, and Florence Lee. And now, for the moment we've all been waiting for the 100th time, my review of 1931's M. Fritz Lang's M is a landmark film in the crime genre exploring themes of morality, justice, and the psychological unraveling of a murderer. Set against the backdrop of a simple, almost austere society, M delves deep into the tension of a community grappling with the terror of a child killer. While the movie is undeniably captivating in its suspense and performances, it doesn't come without its flaws. One of the first things that stands out in M is the setting, particularly in how it presents the early 1930s. While the film depicts a society that seems simple and modest, there's a palpable tension in the air. The furniture, clothing, and overall living conditions reflect a humble, almost borderline impoverished lifestyle, with an odd sense of happiness amidst the simplicity. This contrast between outward appearances and the fear lurking beneath the surface adds a layer of complexity to the film's narrative. It sets the stage for the horrific crime that disrupts the lives of ordinary citizens. The murder of a young girl, Elise Beckman, shakes the entire community. As the townspeople begin to grow paranoid, every older man in town becomes a suspect. It's unsettling to see how quickly fear breeds suspicion, such as when a man is simply telling a little girl the time and immediately becomes the target of baseless accusations. This creates a gripping sense of unease, and the audience is left questioning who can truly be trusted in such an environment. One element I thoroughly enjoyed was the investigative process. The police and the criminal underworld each take their own path in solving the case, but the methods used are vastly different. The police are portrayed as methodical but somewhat inefficient, a constant frustration for the community. Meanwhile, the criminals, led by a safecracker, with his own crew, begin their own investigation after becoming frustrated by the authorities' lack of progress. The tension between these two groups builds the suspense, especially in the scenes where both the police and the gang leaders hold separate parallel meetings. However, the sequence with both groups of investigators felt like it dragged on for a bit too long. I found myself getting a little bored during the back and forth, especially when it seemed like the meetings had converged into one. Still, the pacing picks up as the characters draw closer to the identity of the killer. The film truly starts to gain momentum when the blind balloon vendor becomes crucial to solving the mystery. After hearing Becker's distinctive whistle, the vendor is able to identify him. His young friend marks Becker's check with an M, a clue that ties him to the murders. This moment brings a real sense of suspense as the audience begins to feel the pressure mounting. It's a pivotal scene that keeps you on edge, wondering whether the authorities will catch Becker in time or whether the criminals will act first. The intensity escalates further in the sequence where the safecracker and his gang infiltrate the office building where Becker is hiding. The palpable sense of danger keeps you on the edge of your seat as you wonder whether Becker will escape or face justice at the hands of these ruthless criminals. One of the aspects I found lacking in M was the lack of music during certain quiet scenes. For a film that builds so much tension and suspense, it was odd to have these moments of stillness with no sound accompaniment. The film's absence of music during some of these quieter, more intense scenes could have been improved, especially when the film is at its most suspenseful. Peter Lorre's portrayal of Hans Becker is truly one of the film's standout qualities. His performance as a tortured and guilt-ridden psychopath adds a layer to the character, making him more than just a villain. One of the film's most memorable moments comes when Becker delivers a passionate diatribe during the so-called Kangaroo Court, where he explains his uncontrollable need to kill. He argues that while the criminals around him could choose a normal life, his inherent nature forces him into madness. It's an intense and thought-provoking scene, though I do think the Kangaroo Court itself drags on a little too long, losing some of its emotional impact by the end. However, the film's ending is where M falters in my opinion. After all the suspense, tension, and build-up, the resolution feels abrupt and somewhat unsatisfying. The film ends with a somber, melancholic tone, cutting to black after a brief moment with the grieving mothers of the murdered children. While it's clear that the film is trying to evoke a message about protecting children and preventing future tragedies, the abrupt ending leaves much to be desired. It feels like the film's emotional momentum just vanishes with no real closure or sense of finality. If you've ever felt let down by an anticlimactic series finale like the ending of The Sopranos, you'll know the feeling this film leaves you with. In conclusion, despite a few drawbacks, M is a surprisingly gripping film. Once the police and the criminal gang get serious about finding Becker, the film becomes much more entertaining. Peter Lorre's haunting portrayal of a murderer driven by uncontrollable urges is compelling, but I do wish that some of the quieter moments in this film had been supported by a more fitting musical score to heighten the tension. Overall, though, the film is well paced with enough intrigue and suspense to keep you hooked. The ending, unfortunately, lets it down, leaving a bit of a bitter aftertaste. I would certainly consider watching M again despite its flaws. For a film that's nearly 100 years old, it still holds up remarkably well. With that being said, I'm very proud and surprisingly intrigued to give this near 100-year-old film, this 100-year-old thriller and suspenseful film, a score of 8 out of 10 on the Diamond Dave scale. And with that being said, my film freaks and cinephiles, as always, if you've enjoyed this week's edition of the show here in Critiquing with Carr for Failed Film Friday, do us a favor by subscribing on YouTube, following us on the audio platforms, clicking a thumbs up or like button so you can tell us you enjoy these episodes, turning on post notifications so you can stay to date on those platforms and new episodes release, as well as clicking and share out so you can help continue the podcast with our friends and family. Also, if you want other ways to stay up to date with the show, do us a favor by following us on Instagram at Critiquing with Carr. From review number 1 to the current one being number 100, all I have left to say is, until next time, take care, and most importantly, happy viewing.